really colorful.
Okay.
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 Last week we talked about Queen Esther, and we saved all the Jews from destruction. There's a lot of books towards the end of the Old Testament, but they all kind of cover the same thing. First, prophecies that Israel is going to be taken into captivity, which we covered. Then that Judah was going to be taken into captivity, which we covered. But there were a lot of prophecies, especially in Isaiah, that King Cyrus would tell everyone to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild it. The interesting thing is, Isaiah lived 100 years before Cyrus was born. Yeah, I'm reading Isaiah now, and I think I've in my 4th chapter that mentions Cyrus by name and says he will send the people back to Judah. So that's actually what happened. Cyrus lived probably just before Esther, or ruled just before Esther, and he signed the proclamation that all the Jews could go back to Judah. When the people who led them back was Ezra and Nehemiah, and when they got there, and I'm not doing the complete, all the little details, but when they got there, the town walls had been torn down when Babylon took them over. The temple had been torn down and burned. The whole city was basically destroyed. So they began to rebuild. And they rebuilt the wall around the city. They rebuilt the temple. They had a lot of opposition from the neighboring countries. Didn't want them to rebuild at all. They hated God. Why would they want his city rebuilt? So they interfered a lot. But God had his hand in it. And God warned Nehemiah when there was an assassination attempt on his life. God warned him, and he didn't go along with it, and so he didn't die. Okay, he wouldn't go along with an assassination attempt. He didn't go where the guy tried to trick him into going, because God warned him, don't go there, that's dangerous. So he didn't go, he didn't die. And God took care of him throughout the rebuilding. Filling in the history, then Alexander the Great came. And Alexander the Great was actually welcomed into Judah as a liberator, freeing them from being ruled by the Persians. And so he was nice to the Jews. He took good care of them. The brief time he ruled, he didn't rule for very long. When he died, his kingdom was divided among 4 kings, and then one of those kingdoms was divided into 2, Egypt and Syria. Only Egypt and Syria kept fighting each other. And they would, Egypt would go try and beat up Syria, Syria would go try and beat up Egypt. The problem is, they had their battles halfway between the 2 countries. Do you know where that was?
Israel.
It was Israel. Yeah, so that's where they did most of their fighting, was right in that area. Sometimes Egypt would win, sometimes Syria would win. Syria was really not nice. They were very mean to the Jews. One king in particular tried to force people to eat pork, to the point of forcing the meat in their mouth, and if they spit it out, he cut their heads off. He was just a really mean guy. And the people called the Maccabees rose up. And the Maccabees was the last name of a ruling family. And they led Israel to fight against the Syrians. And history tells us God worked some miracles in there to preserve the people. Now, our Bible doesn't tell us that. And do you know why? Because our Bible ended, the Old Testament ended 200 years before that. With the book of Malachi, he prophesied there would be a Messiah. But then there was no more in our Bible between Malachi and Matthew. But history tells us that the Maccabees led Israel to defeat Syria. Syria eventually left the country. That horrid king died. They rebuilt the country again. They cleaned up the temple and rededicated it to God. And God had his hand in it and performed miracles during that time. And then everybody's expecting, you know what it's like right before Christmas? when you're just expecting and you can't wait. And Christmas is coming and it's so exciting and it won't get here soon enough, right? Well, that's what things were like in Israel. They knew the time for the Messiah was coming. They knew they were close. But it wasn't here yet. When was he going to get here? And that's how our Old Testament ends. And from there we will go into the New Testament. Okay? Let's sing a song. To a blank screen. Okay. I see the cursor. We need the Jeopardy music.
I started today by computer. Nancy Miller by shutting down my PowerPoint presentation. And my computer does not work since.
Yeah, IMC from here is lagging.
Yeah.
The cursor starts lagging in your trouble.
Okay.
Well, that's a setting.
Well, let's sing Deep and Wide. Okay? Ready? Deep and wide, deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. Deep and wide, deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. And wide, and wide, there's a fountain flowing and wide. And wide, and wide, there's a fountain flowing and wide. There's a fountain flowing. There's a fountain flowing deep and wide, deep and wide. There's a fountain flowing deep and wide, deep and wide, deep and wide. There's a fountain flowing deep and wide. This is gonna give up.